Michael J. Redding is the Managing Director of Technology Laboratories for Accenture. Michael, Accenture recently released its annual Technology Vision Report. You cited 8 trends in that report. Maybe we could just nail down what the top 3 are.
So probably top 3 we see are data taking its rightful place as a platform, the fact that IT security needs to be responsive and progressive, and that the user experience is critical.
Explain to me what you mean by data as a platform.
So the idea of data taking its rightful place as a platform is that we live in a world where, besides the data that the enterprise creates itself, it's now, thanks to the internet, connected to an unbelievable store of data that's created in the marketplace by its partners and everything else. And the result of that is you've got to need to fuse internal and external data, real-time historical, structured and unstructured. And so whereas the traditional IT approach is to say we're going to create an application and a byproduct of that would be the data, now that there's these vast data resources available, you turn the tables and say, what are the kinds of applications we could or should create to take advantage of the data that's there, as opposed to creating the data from scratch?
So when you're building applications on top of the data, is infrastructure even really relevant?
Well, infrastructure is critical because infrastructure is the horsepower to run the analytics, to run the analysis, to process all of those petabytes and exabytes of data in order to pull out the business intelligence and the business insight that you're going to feed into the process you're trying to execute. And so we see things like cloud really being the ability for the enterprise to elastically stretch and bring in the compute resources when needed to process the data and to turn around real-time insight.
I've mentioned IT security should be more responsive and progressive, but that really doesn't sound like anything new to me. Is it just a matter of scale now, or?
Well, I think it's a matter of scale, and I think it's that the game has changed, because you can ask any CIO ever, and IT security, of course, is always on their top 10 list of concerns, but it hasn't always been the top 10 things that they've funded, because it's like insurance, right? You need it on when the accident happens, but otherwise it's something you can maybe put off for a rainy day. But the reality, even the last few months, you can start to see it doesn't take much to trigger an attack, right, from the outside. Whatever you do that upsets the internet can suddenly trigger a concentrated attack, and an hacktivist getting, and deciding that they need to pull your data out and put it out there for others to see. And so we really think it's how trivial it is to download a botnet kit from the internet and start a denial of service attack, as an example, that really has changed the emphasis and the need to recognize attack and be able to respond and contain the damage.
And you also spoke of the user's digital experience. What exactly did you mean by that?
Well, as we think about it, we really think that the challenge and opportunity for IT to enable the business is to say, you know what, we've got to enable a digital experience that's long-running, that's kind of regardless of device, right? Because in the end, the employer or the consumer really expects to be able to pick up whatever device is handy, a phone, a tablet, a desktop PC, an internet-connected TV, and do business, right? Look up a product, do a transaction, get customer support. And so the challenge for IT is to say, how can, through a services architecture, through technologies like HTML5, can I support a wide variety of devices and deliver my services digitally so it's cost-effective and at the moment of need for the customer?
How many iterations of Android is it that we're supporting now? Well,
we've seen counts as high as in the 30s, major variants, because in some degree it's like each new handset has a new variant of Android. And so the challenge to an IT shop, if you want to support that, is do you test things 32 times, right? And that's today. What about tomorrow? What about next month and next quarter? That's one of the joys of open source, is that everyone can make their own.
HTML5, is that critical?
I think it's a key piece of the puzzle. I mentioned it, and you brought it up now as a question, and I think it is a piece because it does give you an opportunity to have some commonality and to reuse a lot of your interface, and therefore kind of write once, run many. And so it's not the magic bullet. It doesn't solve, and it's not going to work in all cases. But again, for IT trying to do things at scale at a price, you're always going to be looking for those kind of things that give you a lot of bang for the buck, and I think HTML5 is absolutely one of those technologies.
When we were doing our little prep session, you also brought up SOA as...
Well, and I think that if you think about it, if you're going to support 32 variants, and growing, you're going to need to say, well, I want to reuse as much as possible, and that's always been the promise of service-oriented architectures. And I think it's been a challenge that a lot of those programs got started more on philosophical grounds versus where there was a clear business need. But with the fragmentation of the device marketplace, that then creates a clear pressing need to say that, you know what, if we reassemble each application 90% out of reusable services and just a device or OS specific veneer at the very top layer, or HTML5, which maybe even makes it completely reusable, now there's a clear business driver for SOA, and you can kind of get back on track with driving those programs, because it is a big change, right? And requires a lot of rework. But the payoff will be anytime, any place, anywhere, the business and the customer can interact, and that's IT really doing its job.
Michael, thank you very much.
Thanks for the time today. I really appreciate it.